R.J. Forbes' bitumen and petroleum in antiquity shows that the surface deposits of Mesopotamia were the ancient world's prime source of fuels from the earliest times to the Roman era. His conclusion is that the technological use of these petroleum products began in Sumer circa 3500 BC. Indeed, he shows that the use and knowledge of the fuels and their properties were greater in Sumerian times and in later civilizations. So extensive was the Sumerian use of these petroleum products, not only as fuel, but also as road-building materials for waterproofing, caulking, painting, cementing, and molding, that when archaeologists searched for ancient they found it buried in a mound that the local Arabs called Mound of Bitumen. Forbes shows that the Sumerian language had terms for every genus and variant of the bituminous substances found in Mesopotamia. Indeed, the names of bituminous and petroleum materials in other languages, Akkadian, Hebrew, Egyptian, Coptic, Greek, Latin, and Sanskrit, can clearly be traced to the Sumerian origins. For example, the most common word for petroleum, naphtha, derives from naphatu stones that flare up. The Sumerian use of petroleum products was also basic to an advanced chemistry. We can judge the high level of Sumerian knowledge not only by the variety of paints and pigments used and such processes as glazing, but also by the remarkable artificial production of semi-precious stones, including a substitute for lapis lazuli. Bitumens were also used in Sumerian medicine, another field where the standards were impressively high. The hundreds of Akkadian texts that have been found employ Sumerian mythical terms and phrases extensively, pointing to the Sumerian origin of all Mesopotamian medicine. The library of Ashurbanipal in Nineveh included a medical section. The texts were divided into three groups: Bultatu therapy, Shiverbel IMTI surgery, and URTI mashmashtanans and incantations. Early law codes included sections dealing with fees payable to surgeons for successful operations, and penalties to be imposed on them in case of failure. A surgeon, using a lancet to open a patient's temple, was to lose his hand if he accidentally destroyed the patient's eye. Some skeletons found in Mesopotamian graves bore unmistakable marks of brain surgery. A partially broken medical text speaks of the surgical removal of a shadow covering a man's eye, probably a cataract. Another text mentions the use of a cutting instrument, stating that if the sickness has reached the inside of the bone, you shall scrape and remove. Sick persons in Sumerian times could choose between an Azu water physician and an Iazu oil physician. A tablet excavated in nearly 5,000 years old, names a medical practitioner as Lulu, the doctor. There were also veterinarians known either as doctors of oxen or as doctors of asses. A pair of surgical tongs is depicted on a very early cylinder seal, found at Lagash, that belonged to Galadina, the doctor. The seal also shows the serpentometry, the symbol of medicine to this day. An instrument that was used by midwives to cut the umbilical cord was also frequently depicted. Sumerian medical texts deal into diagnosis and prescriptions. They leave no doubt that the Sumerian physician did not resort to magic or sorcery. He recommended cleaning and washing, soaking in baths of hot water and mineral solvents, application of vegetable derivatives, rubbing with petroleum compounds. Medicines were made from plant and mineral compounds, and were mixed with liquids or solvents appropriate to the method of application. If taken by mouth, the powders were mixed into wine, beer, or honey. If poured through the rectum administered in an enema, they were mixed with plant or vegetable oils. Alcohol, which plays such an important role in surgical disinfection, and as a base for many medicines, reached our languages through the Arabic Ol, from the Akkadian Kalu. Models of livers indicate that medicine was taught at medical schools with the aid of clay models of human organs. Anatomy must have been an advanced science, for temple rituals called for elaborate dissections of sacrificial animals, only a step removed from comparable knowledge of human anatomy. Several depictions on cylinder seals or clay tablets show people lying on some kind of surgical table, surrounded by teams of gods or people. We know from epics and other heroic texts that the Sumerians and their successors in Mesopotamia were concerned with matters of life, sickness, and death. Men, like Gilgamesh, a king of Ur, sought the tree of life, or some mineral stone that could provide eternal youth. There were also references to efforts to resurrect the dead, especially if they happened to be gods upon the corpse, hung from the pole. They directed the pulse and the radiance, 60 times the water of life, 60 times the food of life. They sprinkled upon it, and an animal rose. Were some ultra-modern methods, about which we can only speculate, known and used in such revival attempts. That radioactive materials were known and used to treat certain ailments is certainly suggested by a scene of medical treatment depicted on a cylinder seal dating to the very beginning of Sumerian civilization. It shows, without question, a man lying on a special bed. His face is protected by a mask, and he is being subjected to some kind of radiation. One of Sumer's earliest material achievements was the development of textile and clothing industries. Our own industrial revolution is considered to have commenced with the introduction of spinning and weaving machines in England. In the 1760s, most developing nations have aspired ever since to develop the textile industry as the first step toward industrialization. The evidence shows that this has been the process not only since the 18th century, but ever since man's first great civilization. Men could not have made woven fabrics before the advent of agriculture, which provided them with flax and the domestication of animals, creating a source for wool. Grace and Crowfoot textiles, basketry, and mats in antiquity expressed a scholastic consensus by stating that textile weaving appeared first in Mesopotamia around 3800 BC. Sumer, moreover, was renowned in ancient times not only for its woven fabrics, but also for its apparel. The book of Joshua 7:21 reports that during the storming of Jericho a certain person could not resist the temptation to keep one good coat of Shinar, which he had found in the city, even though the penalty was death. So highly prized were the garments of Shinar Sumer that people were willing to risk their lives to obtain them. A rich terminology already existed in Sumerian times to describe both items of clothing and their makers. The basic garment was called tuk, without doubt, the forerunner in style as well as in name of the Roman toga. Such garments were tuk-tu-dachi, which in Sumerian meant garment which is worn wrapped around. The ancient depictions reveal not only an astonishing variety and opulence in matters of clothing, but also elegance, in which good taste and coordination among clothes, hairdos, headdresses, and jewelry prevailed. Another major Sumerian achievement was its agriculture. In a land with only seasonal rains, the rivers were enlisted to water year-round crops through a vast system of irrigation canals. Mesopotamia, the land between the rivers, was a veritable food basket in ancient times. The apricot tree, the Spanish word for which is Damascus tree, bears the Latin name Armeniaca, a loan word from the Akkadian Armano. The cherry Kerzos in Greek, Kirsha in German, originates from the Akkadian Karshu. All the evidence suggests that these and other fruits and vegetables reached Europe from Mesopotamia. So did many special seeds and spices. Our word saffron comes from the Akkadian Azupirano, crocus from Kirkanu via Krokos in Greek, cumin from Kamano, hyssop from Zupu, myrrh from Meru. The list is long. In many instances, Greece provided the physical and etymological bridge by which these products of the land reached Europe. Onions, lentils, beans, cucumbers, cabbage, and lettuce were common ingredients of the Sumerian diet. What is equally impressive is the extent and variety of the ancient Mesopotamian food preparation methods, their cuisine. Texts and pictures confirm the Sumerian knowledge of converting the cereals they had grown into flour, from which they made a variety of leavened and unleavened breads, porridges, pastries, cakes, and biscuits. Barley was also fermented to produce beer. Technical manuals for beer production have been found among the texts. Wine was obtained from grapes and from date palms. Milk was available from sheep, goats, and cows. It was used as a beverage, for cooking, and for converting into yogurt, butter, cream, and cheeses. Fish was a common part of the diet. Mutton was readily available, and the meat of pigs, which the Sumerians tended in large herds, was considered a true delicacy. Geese and ducks may have been reserved for the gods' tables. The ancient texts leave no doubt that the haute cuisine of ancient Mesopotamia developed in the temples and in the service of the gods.